welcome to Pause and Success, expert interview series. It's brought to you by Casaluna Canines. So have you ever caught yourself wondering if getting your dog was a mistake? You're not alone. There are so many committed dog owners that feel some sort of regret over getting their dog. And it doesn't mean you failed. I want you to turn chaos to calm with Pause and Success, dog training, human learning. So stop wasting time with outdated obedience. Train your dog for real life instead, because life, honestly, it's just better when your dog actually listens to you. However, real success often starts before you even bring your dog home, and that's what we're talking about tonight. We've got dog dreams versus dog reality. It's a pre-adoption wake-up call with Erica Hunter. So say hello, Erica.
Hello.
Hello, Erica. Perfect. So let me tell you a little bit about Erica. Erica is the founder of Beyond Dog Training in Auburn, California, and she specializes in positive, game-based work with reactive, fearful, and anxious dogs. She holds certifications in behavior, concept training, trauma, and reactivity. So you can tell already why I love her so much. Her dog Guinevere and her years in rescue shaped her commitment to helping even the toughest dogs find confidence and connection. So Erica also serves as the adoption coordinator in her local shelter, county shelter, and she matches dogs with homes that truly fit their needs and supports adopters with thoughtful behavior guidance. So yay, we're lucky to be talking to her tonight. Let's jump in. I've always wanted a dog. What's the first thing you want them to examine before they even start browsing internet sites?
Well, I'm not going to sit. I think maybe seeing the title of this makes people think I'm going to sit here and go, don't you get that dog till everything is perfect. So I'm not sitting up here on some pedestal going, well, better wait till everything is perfect before you bring that dog home. Of course, I'm not going to say that there's never a perfect time, just like there's never a perfect time to, have kids or whatever it is, right? Bring the dog home. Absolutely. But I'm just talking today about just some things that you can have in mind when you're thinking about that process. So if somebody says, I've always wanted a dog, I'm looking at getting a dog, I think I want to bring a dog home. So I think one thing we need to do before we do that is really think, well, does a dog really fit my lifestyle? And I think sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves about that, as opposed to just the ideal of yeah, I'd really like to have a dog in my house and cuddle, and we're going to play ball, and we're going to go on walks, and we're going to do all these things. But does that really fit your current lifestyle right now? And so I think it's hard to be honest with ourselves sometimes and admitting to ourselves, you know what? Maybe I'm not home enough to have a dog, or, maybe I'm just not, I don't go out enough. I wouldn't want to go out enough. Maybe I'm not social enough. Maybe, I don't want to have to put in the effort of, doing X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of things that have to, we'll get into that later, but we want to be honest with ourselves and whether we could really meet the needs of having a dog, because there's a lot of them. And I think ideally we all want to say, yeah, I could totally do that. I would become more active if I had a dog, or I would, be able to stay home with them, or whatever it is. But if you look at your current lifestyle, it doesn't match with what you're imagining in your head. So I think sometimes we want to balance those things out a little bit.
Well, right. We all grew up with dogs, and it feels like there's so many more expectations today, but what are some of the most unrealistic expectations you see people walking in with? Because it feels like I feel like we're all kind of going, look, we grew up with dogs. I have a dog. We didn't screw them up. But what's unrealistic about the expectations now and today?
You mean I want a medium dog with medium energy?
I want that dog from my childhood. What
I want a
happened?
medium dog with medium energy that likes kids, dogs, cats, and that's it. No, I think one thing that has been pushed into our heads these days, maybe not so much back then, because I don't know if I remember the 80s. I'm aging myself, but nobody walked their dogs, rarely. You know what I mean? Do you remember a whole bunch of people walking their dogs in your neighborhood? No, they didn't. People just kept their dogs at home. And they definitely weren't at the coffee shops, whatever coffee shops existed then. And they weren't in the home improvement sections. And there were no big box stores that were pet stores. Those didn't exist. People didn't take their dogs everywhere, right? You could see maybe some people would do some sports with their dogs, like hiking type stuff. maybe walk them a little bit, but barely. Like that, people just didn't do that stuff with their dogs.
Right.
And so now, and I wouldn't say we didn't screw them up. That might be a that might be a wish thinking.
That's too generous.
You know what I mean? But I think today we have this idea that dogs need to fit into our lifestyle. I hear that a lot. And while what I just said is examine your lifestyle before you get a dog, I think we think that dogs need to be whatever dog we get, we bring it home and then they adjust to us. And so I think that's unrealistic to think of almost any dog as being able to adjust to whatever our expectations are of them, whether it's being perfect in a coffee shop and just sitting there for, an hour while you talk to your friends quietly on a mat, not reacting to other people or dogs or anything else. The non-reaction, I think, is kind of a big unrealistic expectation for people. I think the unrealistic ideals that we see in social media often portray non-reaction as the ideal of a dog that you bring home. Like your dog can ignore everything. And I think that that's unrealistic to expect of a sentient being that, has their own opinions and emotions. And I think a lot of people just expect that their dog's just going to come home, not react to any of their kids, dogs, cats. They're just going to kind of, I feel sometimes like people just sort of actually prefer a statue of a dog over a dog. Like, you know what I mean? Or a stuffed animal. They want this guy right here.
Hey, wait, my new stuffed dog, my new stuffed husky just arrived tonight, so
Oh,
I'm
did
very
you get a
excited about
derby?
it.
I've
Yeah.
got a derby. Yeah, I call him Derby. That's his name in my
Yeah, I
life.
haven't named him yet. He's still sitting in a box, so
They
I'm
have a
hearing
very
him.
derpy look in their on their face. So I think we'd
But
expect dogs not to react.
so it's unrealistic, but then like I feel like it's part of we ask them to fit into our life, but our lives have gotten so much crazier. So and just busy in general. So
Yeah.
if someone says like, "Hey, I'm really, really busy, but I'm going to make this work because I'm committed to my dog. I'm going to make it work." What are real questions they should be asking themselves before they get that dog?
Yeah, I think part of what I think people, one of the things we should change about our mindset when it comes to our dogs in general, just like even just once we already have a dog, but especially before we have a dog, is like taking us into consideration, but also taking them into consideration and really understanding what a dog's needs are and if that's fair to the dog. So, one thing I think a lot of people really overlook when they're thinking about getting a dog is why dogs exist in the first place, right? So, dogs have been our companions for what 40,000 years or something. Like it's a long
Give or
time
take.
co-evolving, right? Like we've been co-evolving with these dogs. Where you find humans, you find dogs. Where you find dogs, you find humans. And there are no places on this planet where that isn't the truth, right? Like you don't find dogs where there's no humans and vice versa. Okay, because we have co-evolved together. And we have selectively bred these animals to seek out human contact and comfort above all others, including of their own species. So the dog itself looks to humans. They need humans. They want that connection. They have been bred over many, 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 many generations to seek out the humans. Even if you watch the street dogs in India, the ones that do live freedom, like free living dogs, they still find the places with the humans, you know what I mean? Like they still do seek out that human contact, even if they are free living. And so I think we really, really overlook that part of who dogs are. So if I'm really busy, but I'm sure I give my dogs a lot of love. I'm sure you do. Absolutely. You love your dogs. And I would never doubt that. But that dog has a need that's really genetically, it's in their genes, literally in their genetics, to seek out human companionship. And if that isn't being met on a regular basis, then they suffer for that. So how fair is that you're really busy and you have all these parts of your life, but when you want that dog in your home, but there's going to be large swaths of time where that dog is by themselves and they don't have that human contact. Now, am I saying, of course, you can only get a dog if you're home all the time? Of course, I'm not saying that, but it's something to think about, like what kind of human connection are they getting? What kind of human contact and companionship are they getting by being in your home and living there, right? So I know that the current research studies stuff indicate maybe 4 or 5 hours of alone time a day max for a dog to be mentally healthy and stimulated and feeling secure and being able to develop that secure attachment to their caregiver. And that's the important part, right? So you can, I've had many clients with this particular issue. So for example, you bring a puppy home, right? And then I had one family whose adult children brought the puppy home, right? After the adults said, we don't have time. They were intelligent. We don't have time to take care of a puppy right now, but it's so cute. Okay, so this puppy, this young puppy, 4 months old or so, I got called in initially, and I wasn't the adoption coordinator. There's a puppy expert there. And they were saying, it's got food issues, like food aggression issues and things like that. And it's, destroying things and things like that. And I'm like, okay, we'll do X, Y, and Z. So 6 weeks later, I finally get called in to finally train with these guys. And I discovered that this puppy has been left alone in the backyard for 10 plus hours a day, completely by himself in a key developmental period of attachment building, right? So needing that secure connection and attachment to his family, he needs to know that he's going to be taken care of. And at that point, he can't take care of himself. He's too young and he's being left alone for almost all day long. And so then we're having accidents in the house and destruction of furniture and destruction of the door because they're locking him in a room even when they are home because they can't handle his energy levels. I mean, everything kind of goes back to this lack of connection to his family. And if you look at our social needs, again, dogs, us, co-evolved, we all have the same social needs. One of those needs is to feel connected. And so he was not getting that social need. And also he was feeling safe because he can't take care of himself. So he responded by destroying things because of anxiety. When they were home, just trying so hard to get the connection from his family that he is completely out of control, right? Super high arousal, just being so excited to have that connection. And that was just a mismatch, right? Like we're not home enough to have this puppy by himself. And so they tried so hard to do the right thing, and it ended up having to be a rehoming situation because the kids that brought the puppy home actually moved out.
What are we going to do with kids?
That's a whole other webinar that we can have.
But we'll get back to that. We'll circle back. So I want to come back to that point. But I mean, that's why I understand why early foundations matter so much. So we're just going to take a pause that if you've already brought your dog home, don't stress it because the goal isn't never perfection. We really want to build those routines that create calm and confidence. So if you need help with that or you're about to bring your dog home, I just want to let you know that our Buddy Basics course, great place to start. That it walks you through the daily routines in ways that actually work for busy humans because we are busy these days. And it puts brain work and behavior over obedience. And so that's a lot of what Erica's talking about of just that it's quality over quantity sometimes, and when we do need a quantity of time with our dog, but also it's what we're doing when we're there. Are we loving the dog in the way the dog needs to be loved? So that's kind of what we say as opposed to just booping and squishing our dog's face. There's actually brain work and behavior we can do. And that's what I love so much that Erica's also versed in games-based training and that it's really these foundation building blocks of the brain, building blocks, concepts that we work. So that's what our Buddy Basics course does. So getting back to this kind of matches that happen and people are busy, so we can't wait for perfection. We've got to deal with what's going on, but you've seen a lot of matches go right and wrong, and you're going to see more and more, obviously, working with the adoption. So what are some deal breakers that people, when we say we need to be honest with ourselves, what are those deal breakers we need to be honest about before bringing a dog home?
Right. So I think it's, just know your non-negotiables, for example, right? So, and then they're going to be different for everybody, right? So, I mean, one of my favorites is I get a lot of barking questions, barking calls, that kind of thing. And that's one non-negotiable that is on a lot of people's lists, right? So I need a dog that doesn't make noise for the most part. So like a lot of HOAs, that's a big part of it. I don't think you can live anywhere right now without an HOA. It's like, and then you've got those rules, neighbor disputes. And then like in my own home, I have two people with sound sensitivity. Like they can't handle it. It literally makes them. And so that's big one I hear, for example. So this idea of like knowing them. So if you know your non-negotiable is noise, right? That would be a time where you would say, what do I need to know about this breed? So one example is the idea like what's your favorite breed? Your favorite breed, if you could have any breed,
Oh,
no matter what the behavior, just like a breed that you love and you would love to own, what would that be?
it's hard. Don't tell Luna because she's sitting right here.
Pitbull
Yeah,
ears.
I know. We'll cover her little one pit bull ear, and for me, it's still that Labrador Retriever, the big dopey yellow lab. That's
Oh
what I still dream of getting, the dopey
yeah,
yellow lab, who I have a little bit. This is my dream, really, that I have like that life from LL Bean, that I go outside and I got my boots on, and I'm going outside to cut down trees. I got my little lumberjack thing and my dog by my side, and a cup of hot cocoa, and we're gonna go out, and that dog just doesn't leave my side. We get to go walk the property, cut down some trees, do
yeah,
the goats come out, and we're just like playing in the leaves. Like those ones where the dog runs to the leaves and
it jumps
jumps
in
in.
there.
And
Yep.
then I call back and they're just, yeah. But I mean it's always a dopey yellow lab that I
Right.
have the dreams about.
Yeah. I love bloodhounds.
Oh,
Okay, hounds. I am a hound person. I
yes.
grew up with basset hounds, and I love all hounds. Like, give me the ears and like the droopy face. Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
I have two people in my house who have sound sensitivity issues. Bringing home a hound would not be honest with the actual situation that I have here in my home. Hounds are known as talkers, howlers, right? They make a lot of noise. And so it would not be fair to those in my house with sound sensitivities. And it would also not be fair to the dog who naturally was bred to make a lot of noise for whatever reason to bring a hound into this house, right? Like it's just not the right match. That's an example of like a not good match, right? Like you can't bring a husky, a pound, schnauzer, right, Gwen? Okay, she's half schnauzer. That was a mistake right there. Mismatch in that little area. But she has a lot of other qualities that are a good match. But like I said, it's not going to be perfection. But the idea of I'm going to bring home a hound, we can't have noise, so I'm just going to throw a barking collar on it, right? Like
Right.
that's what I see. And that's not fair to the dog who has literally been bred to make noise. So being honest with your non-negotiables and then doing research on those non-negotiables when it comes to the breeds of dogs that you're interested in, right? So if you want a dog that's going to be cool with visitors all the time, right? You have a lot of visitors and you need dogs that are going to be calm and welcoming and friendly to visitors. Herding dogs may not be your best choice.
Well, we'll dive into that on a future call when we can geek
Right,
out to behavior, or
exactly.
after
So
this,
that's the
because,
type of
yeah.
idea of research I'm talking about. Like, I think
Okay.
we all have this idea of, I really want this kind of breed, but then we don't look into what our non-negotiables are versus what that breed is bred to do. So if you have an idea of like what a breed is bred to do, an idea of what you're looking for honestly and what you need to consider. Another example, I want a really affectionate dog, but I don't want animals on the couch. No dogs on the furniture. Those are a mismatch, right? Like, unless you're willing to spend a lot of time on the floor with your dog cuddling, right? Having a really affectionate dog and not letting them up where you are is another mismatch. And I think people don't see those mismatches very closely. So
That
understand.
makes sense. So like my Luna pit bull, they tend to be a mushy, clingy dog. They
Fall
need to be
into,
no
yeah,
personal space. And
yeah,
so, yeah, people say, why do you allow the dog on the bed? I'm like, how would I not?
right, exactly.
I'm like,
Otherwise,
it's more
you're
that she
sleeping on the
loves me.
floor. I
Yeah.
mean, if you like dog beds, that's fine, I guess. But
But even that, I wouldn't get to be on the bed. She'd still take it. But yeah, no, that makes sense because like that's where I talk about, as the dream with the lab. But, you know, a Labrador Retriever, as we know this, that there's a huge variety. I mean, they can be used in hunting, so I'm going to get a high energy drive lab. I have also trained hundreds of them for service dog, and those are the kind of the more English. lab that are a little bit dopier. Now that's breed. I don't want to get so breed specific, but there are breed traits that we end up working against nature the
Right.
entire time as opposed to with it. And so like
Exactly.
that's even with Labradors. I go, yeah, I have that dream of having it by my side. I'm like, well, then maybe don't get the high drive hunting lab,
Right.
line.
No field labs for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, well, that makes sense then. So, yeah, it's trying to figure out deal breakers, your deal breakers, and then looking at the dog and saying, am I willing to work with that? I thought, like, for me, I'd say an example, I thought a deal breaker was this time I was not going to get a dog that didn't get along with other dogs because I train, because we have dogs around. And I ended up with my lovely deal breaker who doesn't
Are
get
we
along
ever
with
gonna
other
get? Are
dogs.
we ever gonna get that? No,
Yeah.
probably not.
And
Not.
so I had to make that choice up front, same kind of thing of am I going to live with this dog or am I going to change my lifestyle to meet the dog or am I going to try to force her to get along with other dogs and have a whole lot of vet bills that she has destroyed other dogs. So that makes sense then and she's mad that I'm talking about her, so she's going to make some noise over there. But what
Okay.
in all of that, like what's one part of dog ownership that people dramatically underestimate?
Kind of goes along with what you just said. And so what that is I might actually have to change my lifestyle to accommodate a new living sentient being in my home. And you'd think it would make sense, but I see time and time again that people bring an animal into their home, especially a dog specifically, and don't expect to change anything about the way they live their life. And that's not reasonable for bringing any sentient being into your home, right? Like the dogs need attention, they need time, they need activities. I mean, I started running because of Max needs it. Okay, I hate running. And that was a non-negotiable, kind of a non-negotiable for me. I mean, I'm not saying I have perfectly matched dogs for sure, but like after I owned Aussies, I had two Aussies. They were purebred. They just were high energy. I mean, they're Aussies, right? High energy. Didn't really like people, visitors, or other dogs outside the family. And so mine, what I said was, I don't want another herding dog. I was very like, I don't want another herding dog. I don't want another herding dog. And so what happened? I fostered a cattle dog mix, and then that cattle dog mix got an appointment to be adopted. And my husband took that cattle dog mix and said, "Tell them he's already adopted," and walked away. And I'm like, "Are you kidding me right now? Like I said, no herding dogs." So now I have a dog I have to run with because he just needs that as part of his cattle dog, part of his breed. That's that endurance type exercise that cattle dogs do when they're driving
Yeah.
livestock, right? And so there are aspects of my life now that was not a non-negotiable, but like there are aspects of my life I have changed to accommodate having dogs in my home, and that's something that is natural when you add to your family. And I think that's really underestimated when people come to get a dog. They don't think about, I mean, they think about all this, we're going to play fetch in the yard and go on walks, but they're not thinking, well, I might have to like take up a new sport for my dog, or I might have to, cover my couch that I just paid money for so that they could come up and cuddle with me, or whatever it is. Might have
Right.
to make a digging patch outside because I got a terrier, right? Like these are the things that we need to do to help our dogs feel, if we want one that like you said, listens and works well with us, as like staying calm, and we need to be providing for those things that they naturally need to do. And so sometimes that maybe covering up the windows in our house sometimes, or making a gate by the front door, or creating a digging patch out in our backyard where we had a flower bed, but now it's a big sand pit with wrapped up treats in there, like,
Flowers are so overrated.
you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that I think is where that underestimation can lead to people moving towards tools and things that then are, as some behaviors say would be reductive, or disempowering to our dogs, and then causes anxiety and all that kind of stuff that we have to deal with as trainers. That I think is very underestimated part of owning a dog.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And I think you nailed it. I mean, that's what I understand too, is that idea of it's not that non-negotiables remain everything, but if we have certain behaviors that appear in our dog, it's how do we support them? And if I'm not willing to change any part of my life to support this dog and continue to say, dog must match my lifestyle. Dog needs to learn. Dog must train. I'm not going to change, but dog needs to change. We get back to your original statement of, well, yeah, but dogs and humans coexist for 40,000 years.
Yeah.
Dogs, I believe, are still waiting. I had a classmate say this when I was doing the master's program, was saying, she goes, I truly believe dogs are still waiting for us to get back to the campfire, to sit back and be like, can you guys get on back here to hunt with us, hunt and gather, and stop all
I'm
this other
waiting for that
craziness?
too. Let's
Yeah.
go back to the campfire.
By the way, that's what we
I'm like,
have going outside. Thank you. But yeah, but it is. It's like dog and person developed by that campfire, and then person went off and created this crazy world.
and then
And
dogs are like,
dog's like, what happened to the campfire? And so it's
right.
like finding that balance between our ideal of, hey, my best buddy, I'm going to go out and be lumberjack LL Bean, and then I don't have a fenced yard, so my dog runs off, and I'm chasing it down the street for the next 4 hours. It's like, well, that's unrealistic, expectation. So I either figure out, and I say this because I believe management is the hardest thing for humans to do
It's so
because
hard for people to do that for
it's the
sure. Yeah.
best training tool. Like you say, don't let them have access to the front door if they're barking at the front door. But it's like, but I don't want a baby gate. I don't want that stuff. I just need the behavior to change. And I think that's difficult for people
I
to
think there's
see.
an idea of should in
Yeah.
our heads. Like it should just be easy.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Like I think also something I see a lot of, I've always had X breed, right? And then this next dog comes around and is nothing like your X breed dogs in the past. And so you're like, surprises come up, right? You can do all the research in the world and be perfectly prepared for this dog to come into your home. And then you get this dog that you expect to be X and it's Y.
Right.
And so that's something that is also, I think, underestimated is this idea that we can predict behavior pretty accurately when we really can't. And think we're always learning. Our dogs are always learning. Our behavior is always changing based on us predicting what's coming next. And sometimes surprises are thrown into the mix. Like you said, with, I'm going to get a dog that likes people this time.
Well, and it is. It's like instead of saying, so maybe the question I'm asking myself is as opposed to saying, hey, I know I want a pit bull next time because pit bulls are loving, they sleep on my pillow, they're mellow, they enjoy the couch. Really, what I'm saying is I want Luna. Like I want a Luna dog. I don't want a pit bull. It's just Luna happens to be a pit bull, so I'm attributing all of those traits to breed where it's really no, that's the dog. That's the breed that not the breed, but the actual sentient being I got named Luna. So I'm like, I want a Luna dog. I don't want just another blue nose pit. And I think that's probably where people underestimate needs and it's hard because we always want these buddies with us and then we also move, so we live in the country and then oh goodness, my job took me to New York and now I live in a high-rise building and I've got to train my dog to go in this elevator that we call moving rooms. I get in one level and the moving room goes down and I get out and it's a brand new level. So that adaptation and I think just sometimes slowing down to the pace of dog, at least remembering that we have this dog. But let's say somebody is listening to this now and they're saying like, okay, honestly, I am busy and you know, I am not going to be able, my dog's going to be a puppy or I'm going to adopt a dog or get a bred dog, whatever, and I'm just not going to be able to meet their needs. So they realize ownership isn't for them right now. Like what are some other things that people can do to enjoy that companionship and love that a dog offers? Because
Oh
we
my
all
God.
want that buddy, but if I can't have one, I kind of feel at a loss. So
Take my dog trainer hat on, put my adoption coordinator hat on.
yes,
Because honestly, there's so many things you can do that will help. You can get that dog love and help at the same time and really do a lot of good for your community. So one thing you can do that if you're just like a weekend warrior, right? This is one thing I'm actually going to put out a call for, like a weekend warrior. I work 10 hours a day during the week, but on the weekends, I like to get out and do something, right? I like to go hiking, for example. You know what? You can take a doggy day out from the shelters, right? So you can go to the shelter, you can get a dog there, take them out on a hike. It's not only great for the dog to get out on a hike and get away from the shelter, even for an afternoon, but you actually get the companionship of being able to hike with the dog. Those dogs are usually just like, oh my gosh, thank you for taking me out. You get all the love from that dog. And then you really help, because I also be like, take pictures. And then you send pictures, and then those pictures go out on the internet of this dog hiking. And then you've already increased their odds of getting adopted and going to a permanent home. So those types of things are great. Dog walking at the shelter is another way. You could have like a regular day where you go and you walk the dogs at the shelter. Every shelter has to walk their dogs, and they use volunteers to do it. And you get to meet a lot of different variety of dogs that way and really enjoy their companionship. Fostering, that's one that is a really huge one. So when some people don't have home very often, but they have like blocks of time when they're home. So for example, my friend, she's a producer, so she'll go away and travel for work, but then she's home 3 weeks, but then she goes and travels for a week or two or whatever it is. Those 3 weeks where she's home is a great time for fostering, right? Like, yeah, you're not home enough throughout the year. You wouldn't want to pay for, doggy daycare 1 week a month. That's a crazy expense. But if you were to be fostering a dog during that 3 months and getting them out of the shelter and giving us optics on what they are like in a home and letting them actually sleep and experience, consistent care and things like that, you really do help those. That really helps dogs get adopted very quickly. And you also are it's like, what do we call rent a dog for free, right? You get the food, you get the medical care, and you get to have the companionship of a dog while you're home, but not have to worry about what you're doing with that dog while you're not home. So those are, I think, really good examples of ways that you can still enjoy dogs without having to have one that you're caring for at home and have all of those things that are come along with owning the dog.
So do you think that kind of thing can also help? Like I go through large apartment buildings, or, like let's say I'm only home, maybe a shelter that I'm with doesn't have the great dog for a day, best day ever kind of thing, or it doesn't allow me to take a dog out. But it's like, even I think of asking neighbors that have dogs, like, is there anything I can do? Because most people with dogs seem to be overwhelmed.
Well,
Like, is
think
there
about
anything you can do that
yeah.
isn't like creepy neighbor knocking on your door that you're like, hey,
Well,
can I borrow your dog?
get a side gig. Okay. So like go on Rover and be a dog walker on the days that you're off. Honestly, like, so if you don't want to volunteer for this stuff, you can totally make a little bit of money doing this stuff. So pet sitting, dog walking, right? Like all those things as a little side gig to make a little extra money gets you that. And then you'll have like, you'll be dealing with, dogs that might be a little more stable. That's great. But you can make a little money doing it, you know what I mean? And still enjoy those dogs. Like I know I have a lot of my fosters that are also pet sitters as well. Like that's how they
Yeah.
that's how they enjoy the company of a dog.
That makes sense. And in fact, I mean, I say this tongue in cheek, but as a pet sitter, you're going to make more money than us dog trainers. So
Sure. Maybe not per hour, but all together in
all
general.
together. Anyway, we'll leave
Yes.
that alone. But yeah.
Yeah.
But that makes sense. So yeah, there are plenty of ways to enjoy the love of a dog without actually having to say, I need my dog. And I'm going to curb the conversation on this one, but it's like a next call when we do another one. It's like I do want to get into more things we can do to support our local shelters in
Yeah.
ways that are good as much. So one final question that I've got for you of if you could rewire one belief about
Hmm.
dog ownership just for the general public, what would it be? And we will again cover Guinevere and Luna's ears. And oh, now, yeah, Max is the one. No, but if there was,
Um,
is there one belief? I mean, that's kind of a tough question, but if there was one belief for general public
that
to know.
Yeah, that it's going to be, I don't know, we kind of touched on a lot of it. That's going to be predictable, that you're going to be able to predict it. You're going to be able to be perfectly prepared. And I think that it's important to know that things change and that you're going to have to kind of go with the flow, because this is a living sentient being that you brought into your home with its own opinions. And dogs have opinions. They do. And emotions and reactions, and that there is actually no perfect dog out there. And I think the idea of a bomb-proof dog actually needs to go away. Yeah, that
I
doesn't
get
really
that.
exist, honestly. Like that doesn't happen. And then the idea that you're going to be able to do what you see on the internet is just that needs to go away now.
As we post this to the internet saying, stop with the internet. No, it's true though. I mean, I get that. It's like, yeah, I mean, for me, I'd say if there's one belief, I'd say don't believe the videos that you see on the
Yeah,
internet, um,
absolutely.
because you don't know what's happening. And it's the same way, it used to not be the internet, it was TV, and you'd see the celebrity trainers and get ta-da, and it's
Oh,
it's
the
like I keep
celebrity
saying, hey,
trainer.
that's just like Julia Child saying, we make all the food and then poof, here's my cake came out of the oven. And it's like, no, you didn't have to wait 4 hours. And so we won't go into that right now, but that would be the belief of saying, hey, just because we saw cute behavior on the internet, we don't know all the other things. And that's a behavior discussion, which we're going to get to in a
Yeah.
second. But well, so as you can see, preparation pays off. So I want to just to folks that are out there, if you're listening tonight and say, yeah, I want to get ahead of this. Remember our Buddy Basics course is out there that people think they need obedience first, but honestly, they need rhythm and understanding. And that's what Buddy Basics teaches. That's the foundation that keeps you out of this cycle of overwhelm that we've talked a little bit about tonight, which is where you bounce from DIY tips on the internet to the next quick fix and it doesn't work. And then you end up starting over. And Buddy Basics is the course that brings you focus back to connection, clarity, and skills that actually matter in real life. So we want to let you know, Buddy Basics, it's only $49, easy course. You can get it. It's either, depending where you're watching this, it's either in the comments or click the link that's somewhere on one of these areas. And then I want to tell you, if you're a Mastery member and you're on this call, stay on. If you're a Pub Dog member or Mastery member, you can stay on to ask any questions live or just hang out while Eric and I geek out for a little bit more on behavior, shelter insights, just dog geek out time. Your questions don't even have to be about that. If you're not a Mastery member, we will see you next time for another Teaching Tuesday or expert interview. And in the meantime, remain calm, be confident, and stay connected. Alrighty, so I'm going to just do a little housekeeping here. Cool. If you are a Mastery member, which it looks like a lot of folks on here now that are showing have their names up are all Mastery members, you can ask your question. What I'd say is you can raise your hand, put it in the chat, and you can put it to myself or over in public chat. Otherwise, you can just listen in while Eric and I geek out a little bit about dog behavior. So the chat's here, it's moderated. I think if you go down on Zoom, since this is new to us, I know most of you are Zoom experts. I'm not. But if you go down into the reactions and you click on React, there's a place that you can raise your hand in the reactions. So if you want to raise your hand, we can go live. You can ask questions. It looks like I didn't do that. Alan, I don't know. Alan's on here as me too, so I'm not going to answer my own questions. That's really in the form of Alan. But anyways, Alan said that was a demo. He raised his hand. Okay. So yeah, you can go down, react, raise your hand. Otherwise, feel free. Oh, Catherine has a question. So I'm going to put Catherine on. I'm going to unmute you, Catherine. I'm going to ask you to unmute, I think is how it works. Sorry. I don't know.
Okay, I think that. Can you hear
Yay.
me?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, you
By
can
the way,
figure it
I
out.
think the chat is disabled, so I don't know if anybody can put any little comments or not there.
Okay.
I know good old technology.
We'll see if we can enable it. I don't understand. Forget entering.
I know, good old
because-
technology. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I totally get it. Oh, awesome. So this is exciting. Thank you so much, Erica, and of course, Heather, for putting this together. I think it's going to be amazing. A couple of my friends weren't able to get on it tonight. I think, is it going to be posted if people want to go back and view it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I can share that with them. The question I had was, how realistic is it if someone, because I'm involved in very much in therapy dog work, and people ask sometimes about, maybe getting a dog from a shelter with the goal of having it become a therapy dog. How realistic do you think that is? And if so, like, obviously looking for, like, I guess some of the characteristics of the calm nature and friendly and things. I just wanted any thoughts you might have on that.
That's a rough one, I think. And I mean, Heather can probably give a lot of information on this as well, obviously. But I mean, I get it all the time though. Like literally, I literally have 2 people on my interested adopters list right now looking for dogs that could be a possible service dog. And I go, well, service dogs are like literally trained up from the day they're born. So that's like a little difficult, a big ask for a shelter dog. But for a therapy dog, like it depends on what they're really looking for. Like an ESA, sure, absolutely. But like a therapy dog, that one of the ones that is like licensed to go into hospitals and things like that, that would definitely be a case by case basis. I mean, they exist, but they're not very common, especially when you're talking about a shelter. Like the one I work at is what we call an open intake shelter. So we have to take literally every single dog that comes to us from that stray or animal control. And so we have a really wide variety of dogs, most of which I don't think would have the capability to do that kind of thing. But sometimes owner surrenders might work out okay. Or if you get one of the young puppies that we bring up, sometimes we do get litters or pregnant mamas that we actually literally have the puppies. And so getting them young could, although I would say like you kind of have to be careful about epigenetics type stuff. So like that stressed mom can make stressed puppies that can lead to like anxiety issues. So it's possible. There's lots of shelter dogs that can do amazing things, and they're amazing, but it could be a long search. Let me put it that way. It could be a long process to find that dog that kid would have the capability of doing that. Like we have, I mean, Jules would be an example. We just had a dog that was a German Shepherd, pretty much a social genius, but she could be a really cool like therapy type dog, but she wouldn't be able to be like a service type dog. That's what I would say. Sure, maybe a therapy dog, but probably not a service dog.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know I'm self-trained. Dawson as my service dog, and I was just laughing when Heather was talking about all the different types of labs because I didn't know all of that when I got Dawson as a puppy. Him being a field lab, I didn't even know that, what that meant. So, but it's okay. It's been a great learning process, but I completely understand that now. But it's worked, and I've learned to adapt, like what you guys were just saying, to the expectations. That's a constant piece. So I love what you guys are saying about that and learning to let him be who he is and the higher energy. And yeah, so thanks for that.
And
That's
and
great information.
Catherine, I think the second part to add is it's always a tough question on what, it's kind of when we get into service dog, I mean, my first question is what services would we want them to perform? Because as we were talking about earlier, that would depend on the kind of dog I would pick from the shelter, because it all depends. Service dogs can be a wide variety, as we've talked about in various ways. But I think the realistic part is saying, well, what do I mean by service dog? Like, what would I want that dog to do? And then what am I willing to put into training? Because there's also kind of a misnomer of, oh, if I get a puppy, like we've talked about this, you and I have, but it's like if I get a puppy, I'll be able to raise it to be a service dog because I can train it the way I want to. But there's also a lot of, well, maybe, but sometimes you get an older dog, you're going to have to put in the same amount of training. So it kind of, it depends. In the world of self-trained service and therapy dogs, it's changing so rapidly of what do we want. And I think that idea that we all just want our buddy by our side. So can we calm down our lives enough to let the dog adjust and then decide, well, is that a dog that's going to go out and about with me? But I think it's a great question because we could dive into this on another call at some point too about what is therapy dog, what is emotional support, what is,
Yeah.
what are we looking for? But I think it's a great question, Catherine, of how realistic is it? And that's the big question these days is it realistic? I mean, I know there's other folks on this call who have service dogs that were fairly neglected the first few years of their life. And, there's that period that Eric, I'm sure you see too after adoption where it's like kind of the dog gets home and they're shell shocked a little bit. I mean, I don't use that word lightly, but it's like the dog when we first get them, they're kind of quiet and we're like, "Oh my God, I got the perfect dog. How great is this?"
That's the transition stress can suppress some of those behaviors we don't want to see. So we think, oh my gosh, this dog's so calm. Well, I got the most calmest dog at the shelter. And then 3 weeks later, it's like, who is this dog? this dog is not the dog I brought home because it's finally feeling comfortable enough to start expressing
Right.
its emotions a little bit differently because it's feeling a little bit more trust and security. And then it's this whole different dog. So, and it's that actually can inform also a little bit of some of these dogs that are calm at the shelter, and we think this dog is really mellow, and then they get into a home and it's like it's a terror. And I use a terror just as a funny word, but like they definitely are not calm. And I do tell people that at the shelter, like that stress of the shelter can suppress some of these behaviors that we might be dealing with later on, right? Just the stress and not feeling safe enough to express those feelings. So that is a thing for sure.
So thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it. It's been so fun just to geek out around behavior
right?
like this. But yeah, it is that thing of like, so what do you see? I don't know. I mean, I'm opening a can of worms, but like shelter thumbs. I have thumbs, open the can.
That's right.
But like what do you see at the shelter that is different? I mean, since you've been on the training side and you've dealt with clients who are like, hey, I adopted this dog or I had a puppy, I raised it from puppy. But what kind of do you see anything consistent at shelter? Or I don't even know if consistent's a fair word, but something at the shelter that's like behavior shutdown or shelter stress or out that they actually get into a home and they go, oh,
Yes, so much. Okay, so I have the best story about that. Okay, so actually, it's sort of like about that. But so we had this group of dogs who all came from like a horrendous situation. Okay, animal control said it's the worst thing they've ever seen. Okay, so
I got to rescue them, by the way.
Oh, did you? Oh my God. Okay, so have you seen though the recent stuff? Okay, so these dogs were in our shelter for months, right? And this is before I even got there. So I come in the middle of this. They had conflict with each other, you know, in the beginning. We thought these dogs weren't going to make it. You know, one of them almost didn't physically. Two of them, okay, a couple of them didn't. You know, they were at each other. We were thinking they weren't going to get along with other dogs, and like, would we ever be able to find a home? Like, how traumatized are these dogs? And we worked with them and put them in play groups and all that good stuff. And we were really concerned. And now almost all of them have been adopted, and some of them into homes like, let's talk about Monopoly, right? Into a home with a cat who like the kennel staff were like, never, they put him in with a cat. A child who I was kind of like, I'm not sure I want to put this group of traumatized dogs in. I mean, a young child, but like older, like 8. You know, I was being really cautious about that for a really long time. And this dog is like living the great life now. She's like perfect and empathetic with the cat, nice and calm at home, loves the kids, just like blossomed into this most amazing dog that we never would have predicted when she came in from the situation that you rescued her from, or you were involved in rescuing her from. And so I mean, it happens for sure. Like we can see these things get better. I mean, when you see a dog get better at a shelter, that kind of tells you where they came from.
Yeah. Yes.
But I mean, like right now, I'm working. So my certifications are in not just the dog training and behavior, but I also have the shelter and trauma certification and the dog rehabilitation certification stuff. So that my whole thing is like, you know, rehab from trauma. And so I have dogs like I do office hours now. So this is my new thing at the thing. So I have dogs that kind of are skittish of people for whatever reason. And so I take them into the office and we do some type of enrichment type training, like, you know, choice making, whatever that dog needs. And like today, I had a Belgian in there that just would not stop trembling and panting and drooling. And she's been there for a week. And she's like, and she came in that way and she's still that way. Like it's still so much stress for her and shut down. She won't move. She goes to the corner. She sits there. She drools. She pants. She trembles. And that's the extent of it. And so I just basically put her in the office with me and I just work. Right? Just we're coexisting in the same space. That's where we're at right now, right? Like that's kind of where we are. And so I see that often in these dogs that come into the shelters sometimes, this shutdown, like they freeze and they don't move and they just don't interact, they don't engage with anything. And I've seen some of them get way better and go off and be adopted and be loving their people and stuff. And then, you know, there's some that didn't, you know. And so I mean some of it's a long process. Like I know that, you know, this dog that I had today, the Belgian is from a place where we got other Belgians from in the past and that were the same way. And one went off to be adopted finally after 6 months or something in the shelter of like really intensive work on trauma stuff for him. But another one didn't make it because you couldn't touch him and you couldn't touch him and nobody could handle him and you could not get near him at all.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So like there's that. And it's
save the traumatic shelter stories for some other time, because I think yeah, people need to go eat dinner and
yeah,
live
yeah,
human lives.
right.
But
Like
I know I admire the work that you do there and that you've made that choice, because yeah, it is interesting coming from behavior background. You know, I do. Hi, Luna. Um, you know, it's the we do evac rescue, you know, and
oh,
then
okay.
the sheriff's heart evac rescue.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. So we look at that and it's like, I mean, there's so many stories about evac, because it's like we never think we're gonna put our dogs into an evacuation situation. Hence why it's emergency evac, you know, fire, floods, everything. And we all think it's just gonna be for a couple days. And that's great. And then we experienced something a few years ago that the evac was 7 to 10 days, you know, and that behavior is so different because we're not set up for shelter care. And you just watch the dogs, and it's like, hey, they came in well rounded, and you're like, man, these dogs are going to need some trauma release after this. And there's some huge stories we can tell. But I'm just asking if anyone else has questions you can put in the chat. Otherwise, we'll wrap up shortly. I mean, Erica and I know we can talk for hours.
We can.
And so you guys could easily be here till 10 o'clock with us tonight with us, and we'll just be fine. You could
We'll
totally
be talking
stay.
about puppies and like stuff
And
like
all and humans
genetics and you know crazy stuff.
But I'd love to have you back, Erica, and talk about, you know, like when we talk puppy versus dog, shelter versus breeding, and some things that we can just talk about, because I think that's one of the bigger kind of unrealistic expectations we have too. When we put out a lot of, and you know, I come from a place where it's like, I hate the adopt, don't shop misnomer. Yeah, mantra that it's like, it's always your, you know, adopt, don't shop. And it's like, well, true.
Sometimes,
but then ethical breeders can be different. And sometimes it's not okay, you know, so it's, you know, it's not a one size fits all ever, but I'd love to have you back to talk about, you know, what are things, especially when you're going into a shelter to adopt, do we look for? Because we've hit on different things. I'm going to bring this dog home and then go, well, what if it doesn't fit my life? How long you know, I can't just, what's ethical to return a dog, to keep it, to realize, hey, after 3-4 months, it didn't meet the expectations of my family, and I have to put that first. But you know, some of those hard decisions we have to make as we look at all that. So
yeah, I think you've touched on another good topic too earlier with the service dog discussion, where the idea that I'm going to get a puppy, and then I'm going to be able to raise it however I want, and it's going to turn into this dog that I can predict. I think we talked a lot today about like dogs in general, you know, bringing them home and expectations, and how I said, you know, you can't really predict the behavior part as much as we want to. And the puppyhood really, people adopting puppies specifically really reflects that underestimation of like, I think I can get a puppy because, and I hear this all the time, because I want to raise it to like people, like dogs, be social, blah, 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 blah. And that's not like actually a thing.
Right. I think, yeah.
Yes, Belgium does need to go to the campfire. I want to go to the campfire.
Let's go. That's actually to say we finished our dog run area with all fenced, and I'm putting a campfire pit in the middle. My partner was asking me, like, well, why would you want a campfire pit? I'm like, so I could sit down there with dogs off leash. We're going back to the campfire. Now that Belgian Malinois would hop the 5-foot fence and be off somewhere else, so that may not work, but maybe I can let some chickens out. Not just put a piece of chicken down, but I could put some chickens out and we can.
Exit would be over that fence too, man. Some of them can bounce, man.
Yes. Well, Erica, thank you so much.
And
I know we've got our master members here. I'm going to respect that they want to go to dinner, but we will continue the conversation. And because I know a lot of the folks that are still tuned in are service dog teams, and that's obviously where we focus a lot in our mastery is on therapy, teamwork, service dog teams, and what do we need to know so that we understand the dog as much as we want them to understand us. So
I think a lot of teams around service dogs, but we forget that even at home, our pet dogs, we're a team too.
Yeah. And yeah, it's that's everything's a team. I mean, you are a team with
right.
your dog. And
Mhm.
then, so what do we want to do as a team?
That's how we're supposed to be. So there you
And
go.
if my partner in life, human partner, asked me to do stuff that I didn't like to do all the time, the partnership wouldn't last that long. And yet we expect our dogs to, I'm going to ask them to do stuff with me, and I don't take consideration if they like it. I just assume you must like it. You're a dog.
Yeah. See, we could keep going on forever. All right, thank you.
Another pebble in the water. All right.
One more thing.
Love you, girl. We will talk soon. And
All
thank you
right,
all for
Heather.
showing up. We'll see you
Thank you,
out in
everyone.
Mastery or Pub Dog. And you all take care.